Hi, everybody, and welcome back to my conversations with notables in our field who are making extraordinary contributions and advancing the whole idea that thoughts are actual things that affect other things. So today, I have a dear friend of mine who is a psychotherapist, a renowned hypnotherapist, who is the healer to the stars, to CEOs, to many athletes. She's written loads of books. She's got a new book out she'll talk about. And she has a whole method she calls rapid transformational healing, healing in an instant. And that's something that I know something about as well with Power of Eight groups. So without further ado, I want to welcome Marisa Peer here.
Hello, I've got exactly that same picture. That's so funny. It was almost behind me, but I just moved it upstairs. So exactly the same.
Great minds think alike, Marisa.
It's lovely.
I guess I need a hat and we'd be matching. So let's start out and talk about energy, because both of us do work where we see essentially transformation and healing in an instant. And you call yours rapid transformational healing. Tell me a little bit about what you think is going on with it and what it is for people who don't know your work.
Actually, we call it rapid transformational therapy, but it does have a rapid transformational healing component. We do a lot of healing, but of course, as you know, healing is really self-healing. So what RTT or rapid transformational therapy does is it goes back to find out why. So when someone says, I can't sleep, I can't stop biting my nails, I can't stop eating, I can't stop worrying, the red flag is that nobody is born unable to sleep, unable to stop eating, and nobody is born worrying. So we know already that somewhere these things are required, not being able to leave food, not sleeping, biting your nails. I mean, you don't even have any teeth for the first years. You couldn't have done that. So we know that these things were acquired. Our issues, our symptoms, our habits, we acquire them. And if we acquired them, we can let go of them forever. We just have to find out, why did we get them? And what purpose are they serving in our life today? So for instance, somebody might say, I'd love to be slim, but I just can't find myself binging. And when I get a bit thinner, I immediately sabotage it and put all the weight back on. So that's very interesting. It means that a part of your mind wants the other behavior. And so we have to find out why. And I found in the work I do that the role of our issues is always only one of three things. It's to protect us, to punish us, or to prioritize us. What does that mean? Well, some people might say, I was molested when I was a child, and then when I got really overweight, nobody bothered me anymore. Or they might say I had an affair with my best friend's boyfriend when I was 14, or I had an abortion and I feel so guilty. I've been punishing myself ever since, not knowing it. And prioritize just means I need this to get attention. When we come onto the planet, if we're lucky and we feel connected and significant, know we belong to our family, we're okay. But if we're not, there's only 4 ways we can behave, each aimed at finding a place in a group. And the first is to get sick. And for a child, if you can't get love, getting sick is the next best thing. You get attention and care and concern. And so that's so interesting that often we think, okay, my parents don't love me, but they're worried about me. I remember when I was a kid thinking, gosh, I didn't even know my parents loved me until I was very unwell. I had a terrible accident and my mother was crying hysterically. And that's the first time I really knew that she cared about me. And I was fascinated by that. And so often a child will say, I got a tummy ache when they want attention. So many of our issues and our illnesses and our ailments come down to this. We create them unknowingly in order to find connection. Our primal need is to find connection and avoid rejection from the minute we're born. And so once people understand that, they're more able to let go of illnesses. And it's not suggesting you make them up, but doctors will tell you that up to 70% of people turning up at A&E or in the doctor's surgery have real issues, but they're not caused by diseased organs. They're caused by diseased thinking. And that's much easier to fix than the diseased organ.
Absolutely. I mean, what we forget all the time, because general medicine, conventional medicine, essentially boils us down to chemicals and electrical signaling. They think this lump of meat is actually a machine. But they have to understand that below that, we are all energy. We're energetic beings, and our subatomic particles are doing energy dances all the time. And our thoughts are also another form of energy. And the thoughts, as you said, most of the time it's disease thinking. And what we find is most people are sitting there with thoughts from the past, thoughts that invade them like an unwanted guest, thoughts that create their reality and their distorted view of who they really are, and thoughts that can be changed in an instant. And one of the things that really fascinates me, for instance, with cancer patients and the work of Kelly Turner, she did a book called Radical Remission. And in that book, she researched hundreds of people who were no-hopers, cancer patients supposed to die, who had reversed their cancer. And she tried to see what the secret sauce was here with all of these patients. And she found it came down to 9 different factors. But of those 9, only 2 related to physical healings, changing your diet, doing exercise, that sort of thing. The rest were all to do with thoughts and connection, as you say. Having a spiritual connection, having a community was more healing than any drug they could take.
Yeah, I just read a report in the Daily Mail on Tuesday about loneliness and how that is killing people, because when you're lonely, you create more compounds that are more likely to give you a heart attack or a stroke. And they were showing you a case study of a man who was a welder and was unmarried, but had a great welding crew, went out for drinks with them, and he retired all on his own, missed that camera, had a stroke, and was in a nursing home and died a year later. And they're explaining better than I can what loneliness does. But of course, also when you don't talk to someone, it starts to affect your brain. So we know that our connections are important. We're cavemen, really, we're tribes people. And it's wired into our DNA to be connected, but we're not. I look at the next generation who only speak on text. And now I can go to the bank and I don't need to speak to anyone. There's a machine. I can go to the store and check out all my groceries. I can have them delivered and left outside my front door. I can get in an Uber and soon that'll be driven by a robot. And we're actually getting rid of people as services and changing them with machines. And it's very odd what this is doing to people, because our basic need is to survive. And of course, underneath that need to survive is how you survive. You survive by finding connection and avoiding rejection over and over and over again. And yet in our world today, we're finding rejection and avoiding connection. And it's really so sad. Where I live now in Dubai, they have strollers with built-in iPads for babies to do that. And, I was at a lunch the other day watching 2 children literally glued to their screen. I think, when I took my daughter, she used to crayon, and she'd go, "Mummy, look at my painting, look at my coloring." And we'd engage, but now kids are like this, and they don't engage with anybody. They engage with a phone, and it's terrible. And that is going to make a whole generation incredibly ill, because we're getting so far away from our need to be connected beings.
Absolutely. And we saw this in COVID when people were forcibly isolated. We're now have a situation in the UK where they say 1 in 8 children have mental health issues. And I think one of the big factors has to do with not having connection. As you say, we need connection, probably more than we need to breathe. I did a book called The Bond, which was an answer to Darwin, essentially. It was saying and asking the question first, were we meant to be so competitively individualistic? And the resounding answer was no. And as you say, one of the primal needs is belonging. We need belonging more than just about anything else. We need to connect. And people who don't are perfect candidates for heart attacks, stroke, even the common cold. Community protects us from all of that and more. It protects us from expressing genetic diseases. Even if you are genetically programmed to be prone to depression, if you have a strong community around you, that doesn't necessarily get expressed. And that is one of the things that I've found with a Power of 8 group. Miracles happen because we find that this isn't our natural state anymore. We don't have that connection and love. We don't have that group of people. In this case, they start out as strangers who have our back and who are there intending selflessly for us. That is extraordinarily powerful. And that is the place where miracles happen. But let's talk miracles for a moment, Marisa, because you've seen loads as well as I have. Now, you call your RTT, rapid transformational therapy, rapid. So why is it so rapid? What happens?
It's rapid because it has a great understanding of human behavior, what makes people tick. And of course, when you were talking earlier about our thoughts, I realized very quickly that all my clients over a 35-year period only had 3 things wrong with them, which was they just didn't think they were good enough or worthy enough. The not enoughness is massive, getting more so. And the second thing was I'm different, so I can't connect. Because of course, when we were tribes people, we knew I look like you look like me, your dad is my cousin. And now we live in a multicultural society, which is a good thing, but we're becoming hugely disconnected. And then we have this belief that what I want isn't available. So when I realized that all my clients had one or all of those 3 beliefs, that's what I would work on. I've trained 17,000 therapists all over the world. And I always say the same thing, just look for one of those 3 things. It will always come up. I mean, I've worked with thousands and thousands of addicts. I've never met one ever who thought they're enough. They never think they're enough. And so the rapidness, instead of spending weeks and weeks saying, how are you today? I go back to what happened to you. Tell me about you. I feel inadequate. I can't find love. I self-sabotage. I procrastinate. All of them are nothing more than an extension of a belief that we're not enough. And so when you can break down what's wrong with people very quickly, you might say, well, isn't that a bit mean to say wrong? I don't mean wrong as in there's something wrong with you, but what is your issue? When you can identify that super fast, you can change it because, of course, it's a perception. I'm not lovable. Marilyn Monroe felt unlovable. Princess Diana felt unlovable. And yet everybody loved her except for her. So when you can narrow down, look, this is what's going on. You have a belief. And when you were 5, that belief made sense. When you were 8, it made sense. But the truth is, you formed a conclusion about yourself when you've lived on the planet for 5 years. I'm not lovable. I don't matter. I'm not enough. I can't get my needs met. And that was okay when you were 5, but it's not okay now that you're 45 or 35. So RTT does 4 things very quickly. You put on a detective hat and you become an investigator. What happened? When did it happen? Why did it happen? How's that affected you? When you've got that information, you become much more like an interpreter. You start to interpret, how did that scene leave my client with this issue? But you do it with them, not for them. That's the beauty of doing it together. I'm talking to you and I'm saying, well, how do you think those scenes left you unable to find love? And then you become an interrupter and you massively interrupt the belief. I'm not lovable. I don't matter. I'm not worthy. I'm not intelligent. I'm never going to get what I want. It's not available. You interrupt that. And finally, you become an installer and you code in, all in the same session, a completely different belief system. I matter. I'm lovable. I worked with somebody once who couldn't spell. Sounds so simple as I can't spell. My wife is called Patsy, and I constantly call her Pasty, which drives her crazy. And I sign cards Pasty, and she goes, for God's sake, it's Patsy. Patsy, but he couldn't ever spell her name. And it all went back to being a child with an immigrant father who was determined he wouldn't be laughed at, his son, like he'd been laughed at. And so he gave him all these words to spell. And when he couldn't get them right, he would hit him with a ruler, hit him, slap him really hard. And of course, you and I know, everybody knows that when you do that, it makes the child worse. And now the child is terrified of failing the spelling. And if that's not enough, mother takes him and says, darling, don't worry, I can't spell either. Now he's got it genetic. I genetically can't spell. And I'm getting proof every day, our words shape our reality. And when the father says, why can't you spell? That's not a question, it's a statement. And so he became someone unable to spell even his wife's name because of the fear that made him not think clearly. And after one session, that just never happened again. That was a very simple thing. People come in with very complex things, not getting pregnant, having unexplained infertility or secondary infertility. And even the wording is interesting. What is unexplained infertility? Well, it means our doctors can't explain it. Everything has got great ovaries, great eggs, partner's sperm is amazing, fallopian tubes are clear, but I cannot get pregnant. And that's always because of the beliefs you have about being pregnant, the fears we have. And of course, your mind's job is to make your thoughts real. And when you think at 16, if I got pregnant, that would ruin my life. Or when you think at 20, I don't want to have a baby, that would be hell, or my dad would kill me. Then of course the brain, not like it has a choice, it must act on our thoughts. We know that. So we think a thought and our psyche works very hard to make it real. That's why if you think a sad thought, your eyes fill up with tears. Think an embarrassing thought, you go bright red. Think of food and your stomach rumbles. And we know the placebo, what you think of a drug will affect you more than what the drug actually is. So we think a thought, it would kill me if I got rejected. I would die if I got laughed at when I tried to speak in public. It would ruin my life if I had a baby. And the brain doesn't go, oh yeah, that was 20 years ago. It's different now. It just locks on to old stuff and what I call unfinished business and keeps it going. But what we do is remove it immediately. That's why it's rapid and transformation.
How do you remove it, though? Do you use hypnotherapy with your...
Always.
Tell us about that, because it's very interesting for me, because hypnotherapy, and I'll talk about this in a minute, is a form of intention. You see so many instances of extraordinary uses of hypnotherapy. The surgeon, Angel Escudero, carried out 800 operations with no anesthesia. He just hypnotized people. And I mean, there have been so many instances of hypnosis, even women wanting to enlarge their breasts or change their body shape in some way have been able to do it with hypnosis. So we know thoughts are things, but things that affect other things. So tell us a little bit about your system.
Well, it starts from this premise. The subconscious mind is always switched on and is always on record. The subconscious mind never runs out of batteries. It never has a power cut. And everything is stored in your subconscious mind. So if someone came in and said, I had a girl at one of my classes, I'm absolutely terrified of dogs. I just can't go out. I can't be spontaneous because I'm so terrified of dogs. I can't walk down the street. It was a very extreme fear of dogs. And so, but when I took her back, so in hypnosis, you go, okay, well, a little baby will put their hand in a dog's mouth, pull the dog's ear, pull the dog's tail. A baby isn't born with a fear of dogs. If the mother's going, oh my God, I'm so scared of dogs, they'll pick it up quite quickly. So he said, so in hypnosis, you just say to the mind, I'm going to count to 3, and you're going to go back to the cause of the fear of dogs. And the mind will take you back instantly to scenes. And you'd always think, oh, well, there's going to be a scene with a dog, but it wasn't. Unfortunately for her, her stepfather sort of lusted after her, and he'd come in the room and try to tuck her in, and he would climb on top of her and start panting. And that was the fear of dogs. He had his tongue hanging out, and it was very unpleasant for her. But she transferred that fear to a fear of dogs. But when she came back for a second session, she said, I don't know if it's working. I haven't seen a dog. But she'd come to a course and someone said, what are you talking about? There was a dog outside the pub. We walked, there was a dog. She said, really? I didn't see a dog. Because of course, when you're scared of dogs, you look for them. And she just went back to being normal. So it's the using hypnosis to go back, and you just click your fingers and back you'll go to some interesting scenes, sometimes painful and sometimes really, really revolutionary in the fact that you can understand. So when I was a kid, I was late for everything. I could never get to school on time. And actually, my school bus picked me up just about 7 houses walk away from my house. And I'd always have to walk home like that, so upset. And my father would be absolutely furious, but he would get out the car and drive me to school. And I never missed the bus home from school. And as an adult, I'd miss planes and miss events. And my poor fiance was just beside himself. But I couldn't be on time, no matter how hard I tried. And then I used hypnosis and remembered, oh, I did that to get my father's attention. I was so desperate for him to notice me that I unconsciously missed that bus. Nobody does it consciously. And the minute I had that revelation, I was never late again. It just stopped. It just became easy to get to places on time, to get to places early. And it's just I believe that understanding is power. We were going, I don't know why I drink. I don't know why I scream at my kids. I don't know why I mess up every relationship, but the mind knows exactly why. And when you get access to the information, it's a complete game changer forever.
Yes. I mean, we see that a great deal with the work we do in healing people's past, and we use intention to do that as well. And what we find, and I know this is a lot of Brian's work too, my husband, Brian, who's come up with his time light therapy. It is about time being an unwanted guest, and time and events like this invading you as though it happened yesterday, and constantly being responsible for your choices, your thoughts, your beliefs about yourself, etc. And one of the things that we do is change the energy, going back to the whole idea that we're all energetic beings. Our thoughts are another form of energy. The big problem we have with scenes like that, which you talked about, the stepfather coming in with his unwanted advances, the fears people develop or express to get noticed, are all about not having power, having your power taken away from you. And so one of the things that can happen very rapidly with intention, and particularly group intention, is restoring your power. You don't change what happened. I do a lot of time travel with intention as well. So it's not just what's happening in the present, but also what's happening in the past and in the future. And one of the things that you can do is change that power. You don't change what happened. You change your perception of it and your power. And that does create instant transformation too. But I talked about a group, and for me, one of the big things that supersizes it is the power of the group. So although I teach techniques to people, and a great deal of them, 13 keys to intention mastery, and much more about using intention in every aspect of your life, I find the group transforms and supersizes the effect because of a change in mind state. So you talked about what happens with hypnosis. You can get people into a hypnotized state very quickly. A similar thing happens, interestingly enough, with Power of 8 groups. In the studies we've done, the brainwave studies we've found with intention, group intention, although we expected them to look essentially just like those of meditation, you know, an increase in alpha waves and just a slowing down of things. That's not what was happening. What was happening is certain thoughts, certain parts of the brain, like the parietal lobes, which sit right back here and help us navigate through space and tell us what's me and not me, they were turning way off. They were turning way down. And these were brainwave signatures, almost identical to those recorded by the University of Pennsylvania of Buddhist monks during ecstatic prayer and Sufi masters during chanting. So our people are in an altered brain state. And that's an interesting aspect, because I think this, for us, the sense of oneness is really our secret sauce. It's where true transformation takes place. Because going back to our whole idea that we were talking about before about community, we don't get to feel a sense of oneness. We're told all the time we're all one, but we don't experience life that way. We experience life as lonely and separate beings.
And we also don't get to experience our power. You know, as a therapist, I tell everyone I've trained, this is your job. Your job is to give every client you see freedom and empowerment. Because people think that they're fragile and easily broken, but that's not true. We're actually immensely powerful people. And people come in and say to me, you know, I'm so stressed because of the emails. I feel like they're controlling me. Or they'll say, you know, those cookies in the cupboard, they are controlling. I have no control. They just talk to me. And then I have, oh, the ice cream is calling my name. And we give away our power so much. And when you say, look, a cookie is an inert, dead thing. It's just sugar and fat. And it only has the power you give it. You call it, oh, my friend, Ben and Jerry, or I need pizza to be happy, or I need ice cream to feel good, or if I have a bad day, chocolate will cheer me up. And if I've got all this work to do, I have a huge packet of potato chips. You've given the power to that food by the way you talk about it. You know, we call it, oh, it's comfort food, and this is heaven on a plate with every bite. So when we realize, oh, I gave that food or even that person power, and now I can take it back. And I was talking to someone who's getting married who said, you know, I go shopping every few days and I always buy these chocolate chip cookies and think I just have one. I eat the whole packet and I can't get into my wedding dress. I said, but you just have to say to them, when you see the cookies, you have to say, I'm not taking you home. If I take you home, I know I'll eat you all. And I'm not going to let you ruin the one day I'm going to look amazing in that dress. You have no power of me. I have the power to leave you in the store, which sounds kind of weird. If you start doing that, oh, there's the pizza. No, I'm not taking you home. You're just junk and UPS, and I'm not going to take you home because I won't give you the power. And so it's when we get people to start to repattern, because of course it's always the same thing. Find the pattern, understand the pattern, change the pattern. People say to me, you know, I can't keep my kids' lunchbox cereal bars in the house. I eat them all. But you can. You just have to tell your brain a different thing. No vegan says, oh, I have to fight myself every day to not eat bacon. It's such a struggle because they've made a choice. I don't eat anything that has a face. And it's easy because their thoughts line up with their actions. And we teach people every day, if you can get your thoughts to line up with your actions. And here's the biggest thought I hear people say, oh, I'm not enough. And that we have a movement called it the I'm enough movement, because if you change that one thought, it changes everything. Because this is how it's like a ladder. First, we have a thought, I'm not enough. Then we have a feeling. And you might say, where's the belief? But a belief is just a thought you think a lot. So you have a thought, feeling, behavior. And many people are trying to change their behavior, trying to change the procrastination or the self-sabotage or the crying or the acting out. But you've got to change the thought, because thought comes first, thought, feeling, behavior. So if you change the thought, when you change your thinking, you change everything and you become powerful. It's like, I can't do that in case I get rejected, but the only person who can really reject you is you. You know, you and I write books. We can have someone go, I hate your book, it's rubbish, but we have a choice. Do I let that in or just go, well, that's one person doesn't like it, but other people do. So I think giving away our power, believing we don't have any power, causes huge problems. And then we go back to that feeling of being alone and constantly getting sick because of the craving for people, which in our power to change. Like when people say to me, I'm so alone, I go, look, if you're not choosing connection, you must be choosing disconnection. I mean, the world is full of people. You can say hello to them. They're not going to do anything. And if they don't answer, it doesn't matter. But we've got so far away from just being able to connect. And it's such an easy skill. And the more you do it, the easier it is. The easier it is, the more you do it. But you have to do it. And you have to do it a lot, because it's the antidote to poor mental health. As you say, having connections.
Absolutely. And I mean, it is so powerful and so necessary. You know, it's not just a nice thing to do. This is a necessary thing to do, connection. And one of the things that I see in Power of Eight groups, and I put people in Power of Eight groups after just speaking at a conference. For instance, I was in San Diego a couple of weeks ago, and I was speaking in front of an audience. There were about 1,000 people there. And at the end of my talk, I put people into Power of Eight groups. And there were some amazing things that happened, as there always are. Now, people don't hold this for hours. There's no priming with a Power of Eight group. I put people into groups and it's for 10 minutes. They hold that intention together. They decide an intention statement together for somebody in the group with a health challenge. They hold it for only 10 minutes. So we had Jason, for instance, in one group. And Jason was somebody who was born with a spinal issue that meant too much spinal fluid was potentially going into his spine and starting to cause problems. And it could cause all kinds of things. And the doctors don't really know how to treat this condition very well. They try to use experimental drugs, they try to use surgery, and sometimes it works, and oftentimes it makes it worse. In Jason's case, it made it worse, and he became paralyzed on his right side. Now, he did all kinds of things for 9 years. This is a young man, too, healthy and well in every other way. And he got back some of his movement, but his leg muscles on his right side were totally atrophied. He was one of the groups. Afterward, he came up to me walking normally, and I videoed him telling me exactly what happened. He said, "I can't believe it. I've been so dying to play tennis, but I have no strength in my leg. I wasn't able to move it, and my shoulder as well. And now look at this. I'm dying and I'm going to go out and play tennis." And so that's the kind of immediate response we see. People who are essentially transformed in an instant. And one of the things that's extraordinary to me, and I'm sure you see the same thing, Marisa, people talk about impossible cases or the impossible. I see the impossible made possible every single day. There was another woman in one of my master classes, my Power of Eight Intention master class, who was with me for a whole year. So she is put into groups like they all are after my teaching, put people into groups, and they meet with their group once a week for an entire year. So when she started, she had cancer in one ear, her right ear. And the doctor said, "We're going to have to give you radiotherapy, but it's going to make you deaf in that ear. You will be permanently deaf." So she said, "I don't want to do that. I sing. I love to sing. I have to hear." And he said, "Well, if I were you, I'd rather live than sing." So she submitted to the treatment. She had 32 of these things, 32 treatments, and it killed the cancer, but it also killed her hearing. So her group did an intention for her, and this was around February, March. And they said, by August, our intention is that you regain your full hearing. And she wasn't really sure about that, but they visualized her singing and hearing and all kinds of things, and used a lot of visualization techniques that I teach, as did she. Mid-August, just as they had said, the phone rings one day and she picks it up without thinking, and she sticks it to her right ear, the deaf ear. And she realizes, oh my God, I can hear. And she cannot believe it. But one of the things that she said afterward in thanking her group was, love is all there is. And that's a key piece that we haven't really touched on yet, but maybe we should. I think one of the things that I hear over and over again that becomes extraordinarily transformational, almost immediately so, is the feeling of love people get in a Power of Eight group. And I'm sure you see an equivalent where these are people who are, they're possibly alone. Maybe they're estranged from their families. Maybe they have connections, but they're not great. And suddenly there's a group who are intending selflessly for them. And that kind of love and connection is something we just don't get anymore. and something we really need.
And it's the same thing that you see in hospital where everyone comes to visit them. They go, oh, I didn't know I had these friends. You know, I remember years ago when I was sick, I had to have an emergency surgery and I came to, and my two best friends were in the room. One of them was head of a television station and they both canceled their whole day and sat in my room. And I felt so much love. I thought, wow, you know, that was just the most amazing thing they did because they were really powerful women, but they canceled everything to sit in my room and to wait when I came to, there they both were. And I always remember that, how loved I felt. So sometimes though it's the wrong way around, because we want to feel that love, we create the illness to get the love. But of course, at the other end, if you have that great love, you can cure an illness. I know because I got run over in Portobello Road last December. It was actually a pedestrianised street, but nevertheless, this van hit me again, and I went under the van and he ran over my leg.
Oh, no.
Well, but what was so interesting is, you know, I was so naive. I thought I was going to go to hospital. They put it in a car and I'd go home the same night. And they were like, oh no, this is like very serious. You're going to have multiple surgery. You're going to have to wear a frame on your leg. You're probably going to have a skin graft. You can't go home. And I'm thinking, I don't want any of that. I don't want a frame on my leg and a skin graft. And so I began doing what you were doing. I began commanding my left leg to heal itself. And I do this thing called command therapy, where if you've got two, you're very lucky, you can command your left leg to look like, or your left lung to be as healthy as your right, or as you say, your left breast, if you've got misshapen ones, to grow to match the other one, as weird as it sounds. So every day I would just command my left leg to use my right leg as a model and to heal itself. And I was walking and they said, you won't walk for 6 months. You're going to have one leg shorter. You'll never wear heels again. And you're going to have permanent arthritis. That is a slight challenge that with the best, when the doctors tell you the worst possible outcome, rather than the best one, I'm like, oh no, I'm not going to do any of that. And I was walking in 6 weeks because I commanded my left leg. And later my doctor said, no, it's not the bone, it's the ligaments. They're all smashed to pieces. They've got to knit together. So I visualized my ligaments knitting, like furiously doing knitting, and I'd command them to knit together. And I was very lucky because my doctor said, look, in 6 weeks, you're going to come in. I'm going to make you stand on this plate. And either the whole thing's going to fall apart or they stick together. You can come out of the cast and go home. So I knew what to do. And that's the power of, if you know what to do. The opposite of the ligaments breaking again was to imagine them stuck tight and firmly knitted together. So I kept looking at my foot and doing that just for minutes. It really wasn't very long at all. And when I went in, you can't have the feel, oh my God, what if it doesn't work? You have to know it's working. They've knitted together beautifully. And I knew when I stood on that plate that he'd say, oh, he said, this is amazing. He said, but I knew you'd do it. My wife told me she followed you. My wife said she would do that. And I did. And again, you know, when you're ill, it's very easy to give your power. The doctor said this, and I'm going to have this forever, and I've got to take that. And I remember when I was pregnant, I never forgot that. I just had my baby, and I was told I could never have children. So I did a lot of work on myself with that too. And I was sitting in Queen Charlotte's Hospital with my beautiful little baby, and the nurse, she gave me a box of Kleenex. She said, that's for postnatal depression. It arrives on day 3. I said, well, I'm not having it. She goes, well, no, everyone gets it. I said, oh, no, I'm having postnatal euphoria. I've already signed up for it, because they look at me thinking, oh, got one of those weird therapists here. I said, I'm not having postnatal depression. I'm having postnatal euphoria. I said, I could never have a baby. She said, oh, it's not you, it's the hormones. And she began to insist that I would get it. She described when it would arrive, how I would feel. The ward was a sea of weeping. And I thought, you know, I'm just going to go home. So I went home. I felt like I'd bought my baby because I had her, and then went home. And that was a lovely nurse. But you see, that's what people do. They say, you're going to get this, or this will happen. After the menopause, you're going to get fat and you can't have sex. And after you have a baby, everything falls apart and you can't find love. Once you get to 45, more like to get run over by a double-decker bus. And we hear these things and everything falls apart by the time you're 70, and terrible memory. And then, of course, what you think, your expectations tend to be realized. Every thought you think has a physical reaction and an emotional response. And so we have to challenge all these thoughts. Illness comes to get you. It's all downhill. There's nothing you can do. and say, no, that doesn't apply to me. I mean, one of my dearest friends ever was told she had a 25% chance of surviving cancer. Well, would be that 25%? Then just say, I'm in that 25%. I'm already in it, and I'm in that group, and I'm having a great time. Because again, you can't give your power away. You can't give agency over you to a doctor. And what you're doing is giving the power back. People think, wow, that power of 8 could heal me. Yes, it could heal you, but you could also do a lot of work to heal yourself just by not allowing yourself to say, I've got a chronic headache, or I've got, because I've got my migraine or my cancer. My is an ownership word. When you prefix anything with my, you can say, look at my painting. I love it. I've got it too. Look at my beautiful mirror. But when you say, I've got my stress headache, I've got my constipation, my insomnia is the bane of my life, my cancer, it's like, it's not yours, darling. Who wants to have cancer? Don't prefix it with my, call it the. Just changing the word from my to the means you don't own it anymore. Like if my husband hears the wife, I go, well, that's a bit rude. I want to say, this is my wife because you're proud of me. So if you want to own something and call it say my powerful healing, but call the illness the, not my. Simple little tweaks have the most profound effect, and that the power they have is out of all proportion to how easy it is to switch the word my to the.
Absolutely. And what's so interesting about what you've just said too about doctors and therapists, I had a health challenge about 5 years ago, and I went to all kinds of alternative practitioners who were very good at their field, but their languaging was so terrible. It was exactly like that nurse you were talking about. It was so terrible that it actually was material for me. People were, various therapists were saying things like, well, it's going to be a long and painful journey to get better, or, you're a shadow of your former self. And I finally said to some of them, what am I supposed to do with that statement?
Right.
And so it prompted me to create a course called Become a Better Healer with the Power of 8 and with intention. And it was training professionals in their languaging. And one of the amazing studies I came across was one where they took a load of patients, and they had 2 types of doctors giving out placebos to the whole lot. One group, which got the first doctor, had a doctor saying, well, I'm not really sure what you have, but I'm going to give you this medicine. It may or may not work. So kind of negative. The other doctor said, I know what you've got. And hey, this drug is really going to help. The difference between the 2 in terms of outcomes, and remember, everybody got a sugar pill, was 61% in favor of the group with the second doctor. 61% difference. And the only difference was his languaging, his view. And I saw that with my mother-in-law too. She had end-stage breast cancer. Her regular GP, or regular doctor, told us she had 3 months to live. And her breast, when he examined her, he said he recoiled. It looked like raw meat. It was that advanced. So we brought her to a doctor who was an integrative specialist who had treated many cancer patients successfully. And I was in the room with him when he examined her. And he had her on the bed, and he looked at her breast, and remember, the other doctor had recoiled, and he said, oh, we can handle that. And I thought to myself, wow, she's healed. This is the moment. This will be the moment that turns it all around, because he gave her hope in his languaging. He gave her agency. We can handle that, you and me. And he suddenly gave her back her power and also her possibility and hope. And I think that is the other thing that we have to understand. And some of the things you've been talking about that are so important is languaging, is intention, because language every single day is an intention. One of the things I do with students is I have them monitor what they're thinking for a whole week. And they're all shocked at what they're thinking, and it's not just does my bum look big in this? It is, I hate her hair. I hate her. I hate me. I don't like this about myself. I don't like that about myself. About 80% of everything we think is pretty negative. So we are flooding ourselves with that negativity. And that, after a while, essentially becomes our life's intention. As you said, Marisa, it all becomes true. What we think becomes reality. We have thoughts of negativity and limitation about ourselves, and they become fact.
Yeah, and it's so interesting that we, because I teach all my therapists the power of words. Words are so, I mean, words are magic. That's why it's called spelling. But our words make such a difference. And it's, my father, when he had cancer, said, "Oh, I don't really have cancer." He just was in complete denial. He had his kidney removed, went home the next day, and just decided he never had cancer. And at the end of his life, he said, "I didn't have cancer, darling." In fact, he had it twice. He had prostate cancer and kidney cancer, but he just felt he never had it. And I had it, but I thought I had it for a day because I had womb cancer. But when I had it, I went to visit my doctor, and I was so certain I didn't have it because I felt so well. And he said, "No, you do have it." I said, "Will it come back?" And he did this. He went, "It has your address. It knows where you live. Yes, it's very likely going to come back." And I thought, wow, that person who was a nice doctor needs a lesson, because imagine telling you that, predicting it, knocking on the desk and going, "It has your address. It knows where you live. It's going to come back." And I thought, well, fuck you. It's not going, and I'm not coming back either, because I just thought, I'm not even going to see this doctor anymore. And actually, he was quite dismissive, because I had a history. I went home the next day and I thought, oh, I had cancer, now I don't have it. And that was in 2015, so 9 years ago now, which is great. I mean, so far away. It was just a blip. But they'd always say, they tried to give me lots of, you're a bit thin, you need to eat a lot of sugar. And just before they gave me this, but I said, "Take this." I said, "What is it?" And they wouldn't, they said, "It's glucose." "What, you mean sugar?" They said, "Yes." I said, "But sugar feeds cancer." "Oh, wow. You need a little thing to eat while you're in the surgery." I said, "I don't. That's ridiculous. The body can do very well with fasting." And so I had this constant battle with them, because I thought, I'm not having any sugar, no parabens, going to be super healthy. There's so many things you can do to fight cancer. And I was very lucky that exactly the same time I was diagnosed, I was running around Chelsea Westminster Hospital, and they had this magazine called Icon from this company called Cancer Active, and it showed you all the things you thought, oh, I can do that, and I can take that. And I immediately felt empowered. The power came back. I do have it, but it's only stage 1. That's nothing. I don't even need a womb. It's completely surplus. It gave me a great kid. And now I can let it go, because I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to be here for that great kid till I'm 102. But that magazine gave me a lot of power and hope, because it told me all the things I could do. Meanwhile, the doctors are saying, "Oh, you need this." And that's ridiculous that, they even had boxes of chocolate on the ward, and my colleague was dishes of candy on his desk. And go, "You feed yourself up, you need that." They weren't bad people. They were lovely people. And the doctor who did my surgery was the most amazing woman. She was incredible. However, you've got to be so careful when they say, yes, it will come back. And they always want you to prepare for the worst, not the best. And I'd said to her, I have to go to Costa Rica next month. I'm putting on this massive event. I'm the main speaker. She said, "Oh, you can't do that. You can't fly." I said, "Well, I'll get a boat then." I'm definitely going. One way or another, I am going. And she said, "Okay." And she gave me this little, so I had to inject my stomach so I didn't get a blood clot on the flight. And I went and had a great time. And that might seem irresponsible. For me, I had something to live for. I was going to Costa Rica, and then I had my own school starting in December. But again, you must take back your power and say, that was a blip. That was a thing. I had it, now I don't have it, rather than, oh, I'm a survivor. I need to join lots of survivor groups and talk about it all the time and call it, my cancer, and I've got scanxiety because it might come back again. And we now create all these words like scanxiety and the stress of going for the, but you could also say, when I go for the scan, nothing there, me and cancer are done. It came, it went. And I always tell my clients this thing, look, you can live without the cancer can't live without you. So if it's a battle, you're going to win, because it can't survive without you, but you can survive without it. And we have to use empowering words, empowering thoughts, empowering beliefs. And if you get stuck, find someone who's come back and said, well, I had it, and you know, I bounce, but I love actually Sharon Osbourne because she's so funny. She had rectal cancer and just laughs at us. That typical of me, I'd have to get it there. But there's so many people who've sailed through that and said, yes, I had it 15 years. There are people who don't, but there's always someone you can find that's had the migraines you had, or the heartbreak you had, or the illness you had, and is living their best life. And so use that, find people who've done well, not the ones who've not done well.
And I think that is one of the things about finding a community. And I think one of the great strengths of a Power of Eight group, everybody is there. When people join my masterclass, they're all there because they're in need of fixing something in their life. Now, it might not be their health. It might be their finances or their career or their relationships, or even, okay, now what? What is their life's purpose? A lot of people join because they want a third act, or they just want to change what they're doing and do something much more meaningful. And I think having that community of support, you understand soon that you're not alone, because other people have problems too, and everybody is working together to solve them. Now, you said a lot of good things about cancer and illness and and a healthy disregard for negative thinking from your doctor. That's certainly something we know a great deal about with our magazine, What Doctors Don't Tell You. We've been talking about and empowering people. In fact, our subline for many years was control your own health, because taking back control is really important. And as you say, doctors get a couple of hours in medical school about nutrition. The typical doctor, even doctors today, are woefully, they know nothing about nutrition, and they don't know that, and it's been proven, it was proven about 100 years ago, that sugar feeds cancer. Cancer needs sugar to survive. And so handing out all those cakes, et cetera, around chemotherapy units is crazy.
Yeah. And the menu on a chemo ward, I mean, I took the menu, I didn't have chemo, but I went to see my friend who was about to have it. And the menu is like milkshakes, ice cream, and you can't have anything fresh. It might have a germ in it, but you can have cans of Coke, cans of Tango, bars of chocolate. As long as it's dead, then you can have it. And the menu was all coffee, milkshakes, lollipops. There was nothing healthy there at all, not a thing, no vegetable, no fruit. It is horrendous, that the chemotherapy diet they give you, and a lot of puddings like rice pudding and jelly. And women come along who are lovely, and they have trays and trays of cakes. They say, we need to build you up. And of course, sugar feeds cancer. I mean, because one of my friends had a secondary cancer and they couldn't find the first cancer. So they got her to fast, and then they fed her sugar. And then it was going straight to the source of the cancer. They knew exactly where it was. So we know, good oncologists know that, but others say, oh no, that's silly. But diet, of course you are what you eat. And if you eat a lot of sugar, which is dead and inert and has no value, that's right. But then, of course, we have this, I need it to cheer me up and I need it to be happy. And there we are, giving our power away again. I can't live without my cakes. I need my latte with sugar. You can't have fun without pudding. How can you live without chocolate? Because we again, it's so boring eating healthy food, and that's not true. But if you believe it to be true, you'll make it true.
Absolutely. And what they don't realize is actually feeling healthy, really healthy, and the way you feel when you eat properly is actually a whole lot more fun than eating a lot of sugar. But as I say, I mean, this is something we have written about for years. Marisa, it's time for us to get some questions from the people listening. Let's see if they have, and please, if you would, if you have a question for either me or Marisa, would you put it in the Q&A? Then I will more easily be able to read it and field it to one of us. Okay, let's see. Let's see. Okay, how about Nadine says, I have a phobia from planes and cats. Do you want to say anything about that, Marisa?
Phobia of a plane is very understandable. You can stop a train, you can stop a taxi, you can stop a bus, you can even stop a boat and get off. I was on a boat going across the Atlantic and somebody got sick and they sent a little boat out and took him away. But on a plane, you can't get off. And it's the lack of control. So people talk, the scariest part of a plane ride is the taxi drive to the airport. Flying is safer than anything else. But it's the belief, the way you feel about everything, including flying, is down to two things: the pictures you make in your head and the words you say. And many people with a fear of flying, they do all their laundry before they go on holiday because they're preparing to die. No one says, I'm going to wash all my pants, I'm just nipping out to Sainsbury's. But before we go on holiday, we put everything away, tidy up the house, do our washing. And mentally, we think I might never come back. And of course, when you think about that, that's a flying coffin, that's a tube hurtling through the air. And every little time I think, oh my God, I heard a sound. I think the wings, that man looks like a terrorist. So what people with a fear of flying do is they talk themselves into it more. And you just have to talk yourself out of it and say, this is complete. If I can get in a car, what gets me in a car? Faith. What puts you in a car is faith. You get in the car, you drive down the freeway or the motorway, or you go to the store, and it's faith. And you can transfer that very same faith to being on a plane. It's a state of mind. It's a belief. We make our beliefs, and then our beliefs make us, but then we have confirmation bias. I'm looking for proof of what I've already chosen to believe, that flying isn't safe, or that cats are vicious things that scratch you. So if you make your beliefs and then your beliefs turn right around and make you, then you've got to make better beliefs. And the thing with the mind is you can lie to it. I believe that you should lie, cheat, and steal every day of your life. Lie to your mind, cheat, fear, steal back confidence. When you get on a plane and go, oh, this is so exciting. It's like being at Disneyland. I love the takeoff. It's like being on a fun fair. And this is a chance I have to sleep and read. No one's going to talk to me or phone me. I can lie in my seat, watch a movie, go to sleep, have a great time. And if you keep telling yourself that, you see, your mind doesn't know. And it certainly doesn't care if what you tell it is true or false, helpful or hurtful, useless or beneficial. So if you begin to lie to your mind and go, I love flying. It's like when I go to the gym. So I love the plank. I love lifting heavy weights. I love working out. The more I say it, it isn't true, but very quickly it becomes true. It's like if you take sugar out of your tea and go, it's horrible like this, or go, no, I love it, I love it, I love it. Within 10 days, you'll find you actually prefer it. So the way you feel about cats and flying comes down to two things: the pictures you are making in your head and the words you're forming. So have a look at that. What do you say about it? What do you say about cats? And flip it and say the opposite, even if it isn't true, because if you say it enough, it'll become true, because your mind's job is to make your thoughts real. And your job is to think better thoughts all the time so your mind can make them real.
Okay, wonderful. So I'm going to take, there's a lot of questions coming in. Somebody said, what do you think is actually happening physiologically, energetically, when we act with intention or focus on healing the body? I know we don't have all the answers yet, but I'm curious what you believe is going on. Well, what I believe is going on is a change of energy. If you stop thinking of your body as chemical and electrical signaling only, and think of it as energy, and also think of it as something that is dynamical and can easily change. And that we know from quantum physics that nothing out there, including us, our bodies, is finite and finished yet. It's being co-created with consciousness. Your consciousness is your mind. And so you have the capacity. This is why hypnotherapy works. This is why intention works. You have the capacity always to change and actually change physical things out there. I certainly have demonstrated that with our intention experiments. We've run 41 of them to date, working with prestigious scientists at universities around the world, and 37 have shown measurable positive effects. Everything from trying to make seeds grow faster, to purifying water, to lowering violence in war-torn areas, or healing people of things like post-traumatic stress disorder in 10 minutes. In 10 minutes. So we have to get away from a real materialistic view of the body and of the world. And once you do, you can understand our ability to heal and heal instantly. It's why Marcy could suddenly hear and Justin could suddenly walk. We can heal that quickly. We all have this capacity. We just have to learn how. So it's about understanding energy and directed energy. And that's one thing I teach, and Marisa teaches a different kind of form of it, but we're both teaching about changing the programming and changing the thought forms. And once that changes, you can change rapidly. You can change in an instant even. So I've got one for you, Marisa. Let's see. Okay. How do you break the pattern of poverty? That's quite a good one.
You know, it's people can't quite believe this, but it's true that the mind loves what is familiar. And that's what kept us alive many years ago. And if you have a 2-year-old child, you'll notice they want the same cereal in the same cup. And if you introduce something new, they don't like it. So many years ago, what was familiar kept us alive. We didn't wander away from the tribe. We didn't wander off and meet new people. We did the same old, same old. And now you have to learn to make what is familiar and bad unfamiliar. Tell me the question again, actually, because I just went off on a tangent then. I'm so sorry.
Sure. It's about poverty. How do you break the pattern of poverty?
So if love isn't familiar, you will reject it. And actually, if money isn't familiar, you will reject it. And we know that because 70% of lottery winners are totally bankrupt in 3 years. How could that be? I worked with a man who won $20 million, and within 3 years, he had nothing. He got rid of all of it because money was unfamiliar. So if money is unfamiliar, if love is unfamiliar, if praise and says, hey, Lynn, you're amazing. You go, oh, no, it's just a fluke. If I wasn't used to praising, I love your hat. I go, this thing, I got in a charity shop, it only cost $1, because we reject what we don't know. And we do reject money. You know, I remember getting on a train once, and a client had put me in first class, and this guy, we went, oh, look at all those poshies. We want to go back to the other place. And they didn't even want to be there. They were rejecting these posh people sitting in first class, and they wanted to go back to economy where they felt comfortable. So how do you break out of poverty? You need to start saying things like, I'm wealthy, I have abundance. When I was a single parent, I had no money. And I say to my daughter, darling, we're so rich. We're so wealthy. I didn't talk about money. I said, we're rich, we're wealthy, we have everything. She goes, Mommy, are we rich? I go, so rich, darling, so rich, so wealthy, so abundant. So start saying, I'm wealthy, I'm rich, I'm abundant, I'm attracting wealth, and I'm doing great things with wealth. And as strange as it sounds, if you start believing that you can attract it and do good things with it, then you probably will. But you have to go back and have a look at money blocks. And of course, most people who've come from poverty, and like I have parents who say money doesn't grow on trees, I don't know how to find the money. Well, nobody says, I need to pay my gas, but I better go out and find the money. But that's what I can't find the money. I don't know where to find the money. I can't find the money to pay for that. I don't know where it's coming from. Slips through my fingers. And in fact, that's such a crazy thing, because you don't find money, you create a skill and you monetize it. Who would have thought you could become a millionaire from shaping eyebrows? I mean, some of the people now that are immensely wealthy didn't go to college, didn't come from wealth, and they did a makeup tutorial on TikTok and became fantastically wealthy. So it's a different world now. And the trick is to do 3 things. The first is you must find your gift, and you do have a gift. And you've got to decide what you're good at. And then when you found your gift, it could be writing or painting or creating, you have to then perfect that gift. It isn't enough to have a gift. You've got to learn how to perfect it. Like if you want to be a writer now, you've also got to be a speaker, because if you can't speak about your book, it won't sell. So find your gift, perfect your gift, and then monetize your gift, take it to market. I mean, you know, someone like Dyson, he didn't invent a vacuum cleaner. He just took something that's already there. Many people take an existing product and make it better. He's done that with many things, but the biggest thing is you've got to get out of that poverty mindset. People like me don't have money. People like me never have money. You need money to make money. You actually need a belief you have something amazing to offer the world. I mean, Lululemon, did they invent black leggings? I don't think so. But wow, did they take that to market. Joe Wicks didn't invent working out, but over COVID, he just did one thing. He took his gift to market and became so successful. So look at people who've come from nothing. I mean, Ed Sheeran talks about how he slept in the park. He slept on bus stops. He bussed because he was so determined to make it. Eminem came from extraordinary poverty, lived in a trailer park. So find some examples of people who've come from nothing. Eminem is a great example, and have created something amazing. J.K. Rowling, poverty-stricken, writing in a cafe because you couldn't pay the heating bill. There's so many people who've come from nothing and have only had one thing. I could write a story, I could create a course, I could maybe create something. And surround yourself with people who believe in you. I mean, we're so lucky today, you can go on YouTube and get tutorials how to market yourself, because even if you have a great gift, I mean, I've trained lots of therapists, but I also have to train them now in marketing. You have to learn how to sell yourself, sell your gift, believe you're worth it. Because if you don't think you're worth it, people will pick that up. So get out of that poverty mindset. It's unfortunate that you have come from poverty, and that's so unfair, but you don't have to say, look at Oprah Winfrey, Tony Robbins, they came from poverty and here they are today. But you have to believe in yourself and believe, I'm worth more, I'm worth it, I'm worth it, I'm worth it. And you can move towards success, and it will start to move towards you. There's many tutorials. I have quite a few on YouTube that tell you how to create wealth and how to be successful. Have a look. They're completely free. And you can really change that dramatically. And I wish you massive success.
And I will just echo, I think that's absolutely, everything that Marisa has said is absolutely true. And I'll only augment it with some of the work that we've done with Power of 8 groups. We've seen many people transform their finances. I had one woman called Bev, down to her last 200 pounds. She lives in the UK. And she very much wanted to start a business helping people with birthmarks, because she had one on her face. She wanted to call it Love Your Mark. And she had no money, but the group intended for her and kept intending that she would get a windfall, enabling her to start this business. And believe it or not, a few weeks later, she gets a letter from Lloyd's of London, where she had worked some years before, saying that she was eligible for a grant, to apply for a grant. So she did, she won it, got a big check, could start her business. I've seen loads of other people. If they didn't have the confidence, they developed it through the support and love of their group. So many people who started out, Jolie was desperate to start her own business. Her husband wasn't sure, he wanted her to stay home, be a housewife. With the help of her group, not only did she get her business off the ground, but she completely transformed her husband's thinking about it, and he became a big supporter. And then we've seen people who are starting businesses or trying to sell books. I've had at least 4 people write the book they always intended to write with the help of their groups, all of them becoming bestsellers. People who had put off doing so for years and years and years because they just didn't have the belief, the courage, the confidence, all of that. People who didn't know how to market it. I had one woman called Lisa, didn't know how to market her book or even finish it. With the help of her group, and then once she started intending for other people, out of nowhere, she meets up with somebody who turns out to be a book coach who walks her through the whole process. So this whole idea of group energy, we have to get past a very simplistic idea of cause and effect. We have to understand a little bit about magic, because that's really what we're talking about here. We're talking about the magic of community, the magic of love. And that's really what it comes down to most of all, is not doing this sort of thing in isolation. There are two other questions I'm going to answer before I hand it over to you, Marisa, which is somebody asking about chronic fatigue. What about chronic fatigue? Sandy, we know a lot about this because we've seen it with several people in our Power of Eight groups who attended my masterclass. One is a guy called Sam who could barely move. He had to give up working. And after his group started intending for him, he got all of his energy back, was able to go back doing all of his freelance work, and was completely healed. Another one, Patty, was a really interesting story because she found that if she walked the dog for 10 minutes, that's it. She'd have to go to bed for hours afterward. And she tried everything, very much into alternative medicine. Her husband, a doctor, nothing was helping her. So her group intended for her to do two things: follow through to find out what was wrong. So keep at it, don't give up, but also an intention to find the source of it. Soon after, she got just an inspiration, an intuitive sense she should check her dressing room to see if there was black mold. And sure enough, there was. She completely behind her whole dressing room and in her bathroom. They stripped that out, they got rid of it, and her health transformed. So there are many things that cause chronic fatigue, everything from injuries from drugs to diet to viruses and more. But I have seen transformations with Power of Eight groups. So that is one thing to look into. We get a lot of success with that. And of course, another thing I haven't even talked about for the health issues is we have a database on what doctors don't tell you with everything we've written since 2013. There are many stories about chronic fatigue and people who have healed themselves with the help of certain practices. And there are so many ways to heal chronic fatigue. So have a look. A lot of people suffering now after COVID or COVID vax reactions. There are a lot of things you can do for that too, and causing chronic fatigue. And we have all of those suggestions on our website too. So let me get another one for you. Let's both take this one. Go ahead first. What advice can you give me to find the right loving partner? I'm 54.
I absolutely believe you're worthy of love. The only thing you need to find love is one thing: a belief that you are worth it. And you see, we don't have that because magazines say you've got to have thin thighs and big hair. But if you've got big thighs and thin hair, then you're not going to find love. And that's not true. So we are born certain we're lovable. That's why babies demand attention. And then somewhere, somehow, we give up. We think, I don't look quite right. I'm not talented enough, wealthy enough, successful enough, trained enough, beautiful enough, tall enough. There's so many ways that we think we're not lovable. But the truth is, everyone on here is a flawed person. I'm certainly a flawed person. And I have beautiful flawed relationships with flawed people. I call it being flawsome. When you try to be perfect to find love, you've entered a race that has no finishing line ever. Like, here's the race, here's the finishing line, run towards it, but it's moving and it's moving and it's moving. You have to let love find you by deciding that you are lovable just the way you are. So if you believe you're lovable, you will attract love, and you don't have to change. Nothing has to change. Nothing has to be injected in, snipped off. You don't have to lose weight, gain weight, have anything done. You have to believe you are worthy of love, because when you believe you're worthy of love, love will find you. But so many of us, if we haven't had love, it's unfamiliar. I was working with a girl who had a terrible relationship. Men abused her, cheated on her, went off with her friends, took her money. And I did a session with her, and she said, it's so weird. After that session, I met this really nice guy. It took me out. It was absolutely lovely. I'm never seeing him again. I said, why not? She said, he's too good for me. I said, you know what you just said? His behavior is so unfamiliar. I'm going to run back to the people that hurt me because they're just like my dad. But here's a choice. How about deciding I'm going to make this familiar? Never out of it will kill me. Just say I'm going to make it familiar, make it familiar. You know, my father was a head teacher, and it's interesting being the headmaster's daughter because you get the least bit of attention. He was very invested in other people's children. And when I began to date, I realized I dated men who weren't available. They were busy, they had stuff going on, they had issues. And one day I thought, oh, my dad, I worked so hard for his attention, for his love. I believed love had to be earned, bought, chased, worked for. And I thought, oh, I'm going to make that unfamiliar. And I just kept saying, I'm making that over and over again, I'm making unfamiliar. And I met my lovely husband. We were married within 10 months, and he just adores me. And that was very unfamiliar, to be adored and worshipped and put first in front of everything. But now it's so normal, I expect it. So the brain likes what is familiar. It's very vexing as a therapist that the brain wants to go back to what's familiar, even if it's bad for you. But you can make anything familiar. That's why you can put a bit of silicone on your finger and shove it in your eye every day, and just becomes normal. So I want you to say, I'm making love familiar. What I want wants me. As I move towards love, love is moving towards me. And believe you are deeply, deeply, deeply lovable, just the way you are, because you are. People don't fall in love with, you know, there are people who look perfect, but look, you know, Diana got left for Camilla. Helena Christensen got left for Paula Yates. There are beautiful women all over the world who get left for average, ordinary looking women who have that sense of, I'm lovable and you're lucky to have me. And if you believe that and really wire it in and fire it in, other people will believe it too, because you are lovable. You are. You just have to convince yourself. Don't put any energy into convincing other people. We spend so long trying to make other people love us. Put that energy into loving yourself, and the world will change dramatically. When you fall in love with you, that romance will never fade, never disappoint you, never forget your birthday. No waxing is required to fall in love with yourself. But when you do that, you give the whole world permission to fall in love with you too, because you know you're lovable. So just keep saying, I'm lovable, lovable, lovable. You might think, I don't believe it. Who cares? Say it enough. The mind will go, God, you keep saying this. It must be that it will sink in like butter sinks into hot toast. So you got to let good stuff in.
I love that. Now, what we find, a real paradoxical situation, and what we find with people finding love is giving it away to other people suddenly gets that pump primed. For instance, I'm thinking of Jerry, who took my master class back during COVID. Now, Jerry did it at a time where everybody was isolated. And so, as everyone does, they meet their groups virtually for a year. And Jerry met this group virtually for a year. And at the end, he said, the biggest thing for me was the love we feel between ourselves. We've really become an intention family. Love, caring, compassion, selfless love that we all gave for each other gave everybody the confidence to feel loved. People like Andrea, who was too frightened to even open her mouth to ask for an intention, didn't feel worthy, as Marisa is talking about. But suddenly, in giving it to other people and realizing they wanted to give it to her, it was her turn, that started building that confidence. And so Jerry, by the end of it, said, I now know what love is. I've received more love this year than I have at any other point of my life. And I've seen that transform into relationships. I think of Joy. Joy joined her group wanting a relationship. And so she joined the master class and she worked with her group. And at one point during the group, this is again during COVID, she said, I really want to open my heart to love this year. She hadn't had a relationship for many years. And she was probably a woman in her 60s. And living in Australia, by the way. So she does that. And a few weeks later, her group intends for her to find love at her age. A few weeks later, she gets a call out of nowhere from her boyfriend of 35 years ago. This is a guy who lives in the UK, so thousands of miles away. And they start communicating. Then they start phoning. Then he makes the big decision to move to Australia, to go to Australia to see her. So he goes through quarantine for the 2 weeks, has to stay in that, some horrible hotel. And he comes out, they're together, they fall in love, they're together now. So I think the pump got primed. When you have the experience of a love that you give and receive, and that's what you can get in a Power of 8 group, that I think helps you understand that you are deserving of love. And the weird thing of it is, the most extraordinary thing of it is, when people are stuck, one of the most paradoxical things that happens to us is when people are stuck, when they get off of themselves, I oftentimes say to people who keep getting intentions for the same thing and it not working, I say, get off of yourself for a while. Just intend for somebody else and see what happens. And invariably, something shifts in their life. The person comes out of nowhere. The health issue disappears. That best-selling book gets published. All of those kinds of things seem to happen when they start intending for someone else. It's not a mystery and it's not weird. The science of altruism, which I've looked at in great detail, demonstrates that it's all part of that community thing. People who do things for other people live longer, healthier, happier lives, and it spills over to you. So that is my experience with Power of 8 groups. Many things make it happen, make these miracles happen. Oneness, as I talked about before, group intention, as I talked about before, but another aspect of it is altruism. We're all in the same boat. We're helping each other. There's something that creates magic with that situation. So we've got to go, guys. Any final thoughts, Marisa? Tell everybody about your new book and anything coming up.
Just quickly, Cynthia said, how can she find an RTT therapist? You can go to marisapeer.com, find a therapist. Claudia said, how can I cure my bulimia? Well, don't call it mine. It's not yours. My last book is called Tell Yourself a Better Lie, because our greatest pain comes from the lies we tell ourselves. I'm not good. I'm not smart. I'm not attractive. It's not the lies other people tell us, it's the lies we tell ourselves. And that book has 4 different downloads in it on confidence, self-esteem, self-love, attracting wealth. So if you want to really help yourself, I think it's about £12, but it has 4 CDs and they're each worth about 35. My new book, Rules of the Mind, is coming out very soon. And that's just about how to understand how your mind works and make it work for you. I mean, I have hundreds of stuff on YouTube and Instagram and TikTok. It's all free. So find out whatever you want and take it. And if you go to marisapeer.com, we have audios, funnily enough, on money blocks, love blocks, wealth blocks, and health blocks. So the person who said they've got a poverty thing, go to marisapeer.com and take our audio on money blocks. And the person said they want to find love, go and take our audio on love blocks. It just wires and codes your mind. You know, we can change the patterns of the mind very powerfully to attract love, wealth, health, joy, peace, whatever it is you want. It is available. So take those downloads, give them to other people, because they will unblock you in the most perfect way. And thank you so much, Lynn, for having me on.
Thank you so much, Marisa, for all of that great wisdom. And for me, do check out my Power of 8 Intention Masterclass. It's kicking off on February 17th. You can find out more about it, both in the chat and if you're listening elsewhere on lynnmctaggart.com. Thanks, everybody, for listening. It's been a great session. It's been really enjoyable for me, too. Hope to see you again soon. Take care now.
Bye-bye. Thank you so much. Bye.